Good afternoon, everybody. It's Steve Lookner with Right Side Broadcasting. We're actually here live. Let me make sure you can hear me before I get into this. Hold on a second. But we're going to cover this news, a lot of breaking news today. But first, I want to explain to you where we've been the last couple days.
Good afternoon, everybody.
Okay, you can hear me.
It's Steve
Wonderful.
Lookner.
So we really apologize. We haven't been able to be on the air for 2 days. And again, there's breaking news. There's this Russian news. There's this FBI news. But before we do that, I know a lot of you have questions about where we were the last 2 days. So let me just take like 2 minutes and explain what happened to us the last couple days. So 2 days ago, we were in the middle of our Florida shooting coverage, that terrible school shooting in Florida. We'd been on the air about 45 minutes covering it. We were telling you the news, bringing you the latest updates. And then all of a sudden, I'm sitting here broadcasting, and I look and I see the stream has ended. And I'm like, well, how is the stream ended? I mean, I control it from here, and Joe or Jake or somebody else from Right Side didn't end it. And YouTube just ended our stream. They just ended it with literally no explanation whatsoever. To this day, to this second, we have never gotten an email or a tweet or anything from YouTube saying we ended your stream and why. Nothing. Literally nothing. No explanation. So they just ended our stream. And another funny thing about that is if you looked at the time, like on YouTube, like CNN and CNBC, there were other streams covering the shooting. So it wasn't like we were doing something that YouTube didn't allow by covering the shooting, because you could see other streams covering the exact same news. But they literally, I'm not kidding you, just ended our stream. There were thousands of people watching our stream. They just ended it and felt no need to tell us why they did it. We to this second, we have not received any kind of notification from YouTube that they ended our stream and why they ended it. Okay, so that would be bad enough. But then we realize right after that stream, we can't even stream anymore. We go to our account and it says streaming has been disabled. And it makes no sense, because if you look under YouTube, it tells you the different reasons that they can disable streaming. None of those apply to us. There was nothing that had changed in our YouTube streaming. Nothing had applied to us, and they just stopped our streaming. No explanation why. They didn't even send us an email saying we've prevented you from streaming. Streaming was disabled. So this has gone on for 2 days. We contacted their customer service, and we explained the situation. In customer service, I was actually doing this contact. Customer service literally cut and pasted the list of reasons why you could get streaming suspended from their website and sent it to me in the chat. And I was like, look, I already told you, I know about this list. None of that applies to us. And then the customer service person was like, oh, well, I guess we need to check with our internal team on what's going on. So we don't hear back. That was 2 days ago. Then they send Joe an email. This person from the customer service sends Joe an update email. And the update email literally is just the cut and paste of the same reasons why your channel cannot have streaming anymore for any given channel, which don't apply to us. So they cut and paste the same thing. That was their email. So it's been 2 days. We've received no notice from them, no explanation as to why they stopped the shooting stream, no shooting coverage stream, no explanation of why we couldn't come live to you, literally none. And the only explanation they attempted to give was when they sent us a list of like, these are the reasons a channel can lose its streaming. That wasn't like an anti-explanation, because none of that actually applied to our channel. So this news was all happening today, the FBI stuff and the Russia stuff. And I was talking to Joe, and we were literally I'm not exaggerating. I literally had created a tweet with Joe to send out. And I was probably 2 minutes away from posting this tweet on our Twitter account saying, look, we're really sorry. YouTube has stopped us from streaming. We don't know why. If you want to, please tweet YouTube and ask them why, because they're not telling us why. And right before I sent out that tweet, we sent that out from Right Side Broadcasting. I said, you know what? I'm going to check one more time before we send this tweet out to make sure it's not fixed yet. And I checked. And lo and behold, it was fixed. No explanation why. So we have no idea. They never told us why they stopped our broadcast where thousands of people were watching us, probably tens of thousands if you add up if you add up the whole view, the total amount of watching was tens of thousands. But at the time we had a Facebook stream and a YouTube stream. But on YouTube, thousands were watching us. They just cut it off of our Florida shooting with no explanation. No explanation as to why for the last 2 days we couldn't come on the air and cover news for you. We couldn't even come on the air and cover the FBI story like an hour ago because we didn't have streaming. We literally just got streaming capability back. No, when we got the streaming capability back, no email saying, hey, you got your capability back. I literally found it accidentally when I happened to refresh my browser. So this is what we're dealing with YouTube. That's what we have to deal with them, and that's why we couldn't bring you news the last 2 days, and that's why I've just been able to get on the air right now to cover this news for you. And we apologize, and it's just, we're so sorry, but it's like we can't do anything about this. And again, I have to emphasize this. They didn't feel that they even owed us any kind of notification or explanation. That they had cut off our stream of the Florida news and that they had cut off our ability to live stream and any explanation of why they did either of those things. To this second, no explanation that nothing informing us they did it and no explanation why. None. Just none. Absolutely none. And that's how they treat you too. They don't feel they owe you, our viewers. We have 300,000 subscribers. Apparently, they don't care about those 300,000 people because they don't feel like they owe you an explanation that this happened, of why it happened. So that's what we're dealing with is here. We really try our best to bring you the news, but that's who we're dealing with. So we apologize, but that's what happened. Okay, so we're going to cover this news today, and I appreciate it. I want to say thanks. Jerry made a donation before, right as I was coming on the air. Thank you, Jerry, for donating to Right Side Broadcasting. That is how we stay on the air, is your donations. We certainly don't stay on the air from YouTube revenue because it's so small and because they're constantly doing things to prevent us from getting it. Already, just so you know, they already marked this stream. I checked. This stream of coverage of this story, they've already marked it not suitable for most advertisers, so we basically will get no advertising revenue for it. But whatever. We're going to keep going. We want to cover the news. We want to cover the news for you. So we appreciate you all joining us. Again, we're sorry we couldn't come on the last couple of days. Wasn't our fault. YouTube decided to arbitrarily just shut the channel down for 2 days and didn't explain why and has never explained why. So anyways, I want to say thanks to our moderators, Barbara Braley and JC. Ooh, I forgot to tell Jake we're on the air. Hang on. I want to get this up on the website in case it's not up yet. Give me 1 second and then we'll get into the news. Okay, that's done. And thank you, Barbara and JC, and who else is in there? So Barbara and JC, and it will be Common Sense and Gleno on the website. So thank you for moderating. And again, our apologies that we couldn't come on the air for 2 days. It's really annoying. All right, so we're going to talk about the Russia Mueller indictment story now. Maybe we'll do another stream after to talk about the big FBI story. Just so you know, the story came out really briefly. I'll take 5 seconds about this. 20 minutes before the Russia story broke, this huge story came out that the FBI received a tip, I think on January 5th, about the Florida shooter. And this tip was supposed to be forwarded to the Miami office, and it was never forwarded. They said protocols weren't followed. So really quick, we'll probably do another stream about this, but I just want to just take 5 seconds on it and just let you know if you hadn't heard about this. Hang on 1 second. It's right here. Right here. So FBI says it received a tip from a person close to the alleged Florida shooter on January 5th, 2018, confirms protocols were not followed for the information received. The information should have been forwarded to the FBI Miami field office where appropriate investigative steps would have been taken, but that did not happen. So that's a huge story. But the thing is, no one's talking about this now. I feel like it's very lucky for the FBI because 20 minutes later, this big Mueller story came out. So, I mean, this was a huge story, and it is a huge story, but nobody's talking about it right now because they're all talking about Russia. So I think we'll probably do a stream about this after, but we're going to stick to the Russia story right now. And thank you for the donation, Budget Girl. Budget Girl says, we missed you, Steve. Stephen, moderators. We missed you guys too, so thank you. We couldn't even do our live chat, our 24-hour live chat for you guys because YouTube cut off our ability to stream. Oh, and the other thing is YouTube said you can use your other channels to stream. Like we have like a secondary channel we never use that we created originally. But they said you can use your backup channels to stream, but they cut those off too without telling us and explaining why. All right, so let's get into this. Let's get into this Russia story. So what happened? We're going to go over this. The basic idea of what happened is Rod Rosenstein just a few minutes ago announced that the Mueller investigation into Russian meddling in the election and Russian collusion. I think the investigation is technically supposed to be about collusion between Russia and the Trump campaign, possible collusion on the election, but his writ, Mueller, is that anything that comes up in his investigation is fair game for him to file charges on. So he filed charges today. The Mueller investigation filed charges today on 13 Russians and 3 Russian entities. And the basic idea of the charges is that from 2014 to 2016, these people and entities were were involved in this project to sow discord in America and to pose as Americans, to post stuff on social media, to organize rallies, to basically act like, to have people who weren't Americans act like Americans, and also to like pay Americans to act a certain way, Americans who didn't know they were talking to Russians. But basically, the Russians were stirring up political activity in America, social media posts, rallies, things like that, that was designed to spread discord in America. So as I said before, we're gonna get into all the details, but Rod Rosenstein said the stated goal of this campaign was, I'm going to read you the quote right now, I wrote it down, the stated goal of the Russian election meddling program that's the subject of the charges today. The stated goal of this program was spreading distrust toward the candidates and the political system in general. Spreading distrust towards the candidates and the political system in general. That's the stated goal, according to the Mueller investigation, of this Russian election program that the charges had to do with today. Again, spreading distrust towards the candidates and the political system in general. Now, I think it's very important to note that the goal of this Russian meddling campaign that is being charged by the Mueller investigation, the goal does not include getting Trump elected. Let's be very clear on this. The stated goal, I'm going to show you my tweet because it's a quote from Rod Rosenstein. The stated goal was spreading distrust towards the candidates and the political system in general. And as I said, worth noting, this goal does not include getting Trump elected. Now, in wanting to spread distrust towards the candidates and the political system, it would make sense that the Russians would push for a closer election. You know, if there's a close election, that's going to foster some distrust in the system. I would think that if their goal is to foster distrust in the system and the candidates, a perfect result for the Russians would have been like an election that was only won by one vote, because then the closer the election is, the more people on the losing side are going to question the system. So it makes sense to me that if the stated goal of the Russian election meddling operation was to sow distrust in the candidates in the political system, they would be giving support to Trump because Hillary was in the lead for a lot of the campaign. Hillary was presumed to be the one who was going to win by a lot. So, if I've seen reports. I haven't actually read the charges yet. Now, it's like 37 pages, and I want to go through some of it with you. But I believe, there's stuff in the reports. From what I've read, reports that say there is stuff in the indictment that says there was support in social media given to Trump by the Russians. But I want you to look at something. In this Bloomberg article, which just came out today, where is it here? Check this out. It says, oops, hey, hold on a second.
What we know right now is that
hold on a second. Here it is. This is from this Bloomberg article, which just came out today, and it says, in the indictment, it says, in a February 2016 planning memo, the Russians were instructed to use any opportunity to criticize The Russians were instructed to use any opportunity to criticize Hillary and the rest except Sanders and Trump. We support them. Sanders and Trump. We support them. Plural. Sanders and Trump. Not just Trump. Sanders and Trump. We support them. Which, again, that doesn't play into the narrative of, oh, the Russians were just meddling in the election so Trump would win, and they were working with Trump to help Trump. What this plays into is what Rod Rosenstein said is the stated goal of the election meddling campaign, which is to sow distrust in the political system. They're supporting here, you can see they're supporting not just Trump, but Trump and Sanders. They want this to be a close election. Sanders and Trump are anti-establishment candidates. That's another reason for the Russians maybe to be supporting Sanders and Trump. They're anti-establishment candidates. They talk about how the system is broken. Sanders did that a lot. Remember, Sanders, most of his money came from small donors, and he was very out there about saying, I don't want super PAC money. I want just small donors. So Sanders and Trump were both kind of insurgent anti-establishment candidates. And if you're the Russians in trying to undermine confidence in the political system and to sow distrust of the political system, it makes sense that you would support Sanders and Trump. One, because their message is a message of questioning the system and criticizing the system. And two, because they were the biggest challengers to Hillary. And the more you support them, that might make the election closer, and a close election undermines trust in the political system. So everything that's coming out that I've seen nothing to suggest this campaign by the Russians was an organized campaign with the goal of electing President Trump. What I keep seeing is reports, including what the Mueller team said today through Rosenstein. Rosenstein is speaking for the special counsel at this press conference today. He said the stated goal of the Russian election meddling was to sow distrust in the candidates and the political system, not to get President Trump elected. But it makes sense that they would give support to President Trump on social media as well as to Bernie Sanders, because that helps sow distrust. And it was incredible to me, right after the Rosenstein press conference, which was on CNN, they go back to Brianna Keilar on CNN, and CNN starts spinning it like this shows CNN was right. Which it doesn't. To me, it shows CNN was wrong. CNN and the media, much of the mainstream media, has been pushing this narrative for 13 months now since the election that this Russian meddling campaign was designed to elect President Trump. That was the goal of it. And the stuff we're hearing today, to me, totally shows that's not the case. It doesn't support that. It supports the claim that Russia was trying to sow discord, to sow distrust in America, and that any support of President Trump they gave was in the service of their larger goal, which was not to get President Trump elected, but to sow discord and distrust in the system. So it was amazing to me. Right after the Rosenstein thing, the Rosenstein press conference, they went back to Brianna Keilar on CNN, and she just started talking as if like, this is what we were talking about. And then she also said something like, President Trump denied this, but now they're saying it happened. Now, President Trump, what he's been denying over and over again is that there was collusion between the Trump campaign and the Russian government. And Rosenstein, let me show you this. This is an important part of Rosenstein's announcement. I listened to the announcement and I tweeted about this too. Rosenstein said that, hold on a second. There is no allegation in this indictment that any American, including people on the Trump campaign, this isn't a quote, but this is a paraphrase of what he said, but he did say this. There's no allegation in this indictment that any American had any knowledge they were communicating with Russians. So in the indictment itself, I haven't read the actual indictment, but I've seen reporting on this. It does supposedly say that there was some contact between Russians involved in this election meddling campaign and people who worked for the Trump campaign. Okay? But at the same time, Rosenstein said in the press conference, there's no allegation in this indictment that any American, which of course includes Americans in the Trump campaign, knew they were communicating with Russians. So President Trump, what he's been denying is that there was any collusion between the Russians and America, and that on the election. And after this indictment comes out, and after what Rosenstein says, for Brianna Keilar, the first thing she says, one of the first things she says is on CNN after the press conference is, this shows that President Trump was wrong and this actually happened. It doesn't show that at all. President Trump has been denying collusion. He hasn't denied that the Russians did anything. I mean, now, look, if he... I don't have all of the tape of what President Trump said here. So maybe on occasion he said the Russians literally never posted anything on social media about the election. I don't know. Maybe he did. If he did, well, this shows that to be wrong. But the big denial President Trump has been making over and over again, and I cover all the White House press briefings, so I see what Sarah Sanders says all the time in briefings. The big denial she makes and the White House makes and President Trump makes is that they say there was no collusion. President Trump has said that again and again and again. And that's the big denial. And when CNN comes on after the press conference today and says, this shows they were wrong in denying it, that's just incorrect. What they've been denying is that there was collusion. And if anything, this indictment today supports the claim that there was no collusion because Rod Rosenstein said there's nothing in this allegation that says any American knew they were talking to Russians. How does that support collusion? I don't know. Anyways, Alan Kendrick made a donation. Alan says, "Go, Steve, you're on fire." Well, look, I'm just upset because, again, it's just this. We just like dealing with the facts here at Right Side Broadcasting, and it's so funny that this indictment comes out, and Rosenstein has this press conference, which to me, if you listen to what is being said, you say, "Wow, that really suggests that the mainstream media was wrong in that in saying this election this election meddling campaign by the Russians was all about electing Trump." So you hear what Rosenstein says, and you think that, and then on CNN immediately after, they're talking as if what Rosenstein said supports their claim that there was collusion, which is just it's like I'm in crazy land. So we're just trying to deal with facts here. I don't care either way. I don't have any big stake in this game. If they had come out today and said in the press conference, "Look, we have all this evidence of collusion. We're going to give it to you." Fine, I wouldn't deny that. I'd say, great, they have evidence. Let's look at the evidence. But they didn't say that at all. What they said is that the goal of the Russian meddling campaign, about which the indictments were, the goal of that campaign was not to elect President Trump. It was to create distrust in the candidates in the system. And they said nothing in the indictment says any American, which would include people from the Trump campaign, knew at any time they were communicating with a Russian involved in this election meddling campaign. That's what Rod Rosenstein said. That's what he said. Those are his words. Anyways, so I want to get into some more of the details of this. I've just been giving you a summary, but I want to get into some more details. I want to fix my tie. Look at this. It's so awful. There we go. That's better. But I also want to hear from you guys. So if you have comments on this, let me get some comments for a minute, and then I'll get back to the news here. If you have comments, you can write to me on Twitter, at Lookner, at Lookner on Twitter. Write to me on Twitter, at Lookner, with comments. Also, be sure to subscribe to us at YouTube on YouTube, Right Side Broadcasting. But as you can see, they once in a while, they'll shut us down for no reason at all for 2 days at a time. So in addition to subscribing to us on YouTube, you should follow us on Facebook at Right Side Broadcasting and on Twitter at RSB Network, so we can communicate with you. And thank you to those of you who've donated. We are viewer supported here at Right Side Broadcasting. So if you like this coverage and you want to see, you like having this option besides the mainstream media for your news coverage, please consider donating, because we rely on you to stay on the air. We make very, very little money from YouTube advertisements because they pay so little, and also because a stream like this, they've already marked as unfriendly to most advertisers. So we'll get basically hardly any advertising money from this stream, no matter how many people watch it. So we really rely on you to stay on the air, your support, your donations. If you want to donate, go to the bottom of the YouTube chat, click on the $sign at the bottom of the YouTube chat. It's a little $sign at the bottom of the chat room, little gray $sign, or go to rsbn.tv/donate, rsbn.tv/donate. And hello to everybody watching on Facebook as well as YouTube, and on the website as well. All right, let me get to some comments from you, and then we haven't even had time yet to get to more of the nitty-gritty details, which I do want to get into about this indictment. But let me just check my comments here real quick and see what you guys are saying. I'm sorry I haven't been able to check them yet. I had tweeted out, that there was no allegation in this indictment. Rosenstein said there was no allegation in this indictment that any American had any knowledge they were communicating with Russians. That would include people in the Trump campaign. And the Gay Patriot wrote, ding, 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 ding. And the Gay Patriot says, Mueller investigation proves Trump innocent. David Fuchs writes in, now we see why voter ID was needed so outside countries could influence, I think you mean to say could not influence our elections or vote illegally. Jack Canoff says, he made a donation, thank you, Jack, and Jack says, this is what Mueller was supposed to be looking into, Russian meddling. Mainstream media wants it to prove collusion between Trump, Russia, that dog don't hunt. And I gotta say, Jack, something else that should be said here is, think of how long the Mueller investigation has been going. It's been going on for 15 months, not 15 months, it's going on for like a year or something now. They've been spending all this time, they've been doing all this research. Don't you think if they had anything on collusion, they would start coming out, or they would have said something about it today? I mean, maybe they don't. I'm just saying, isn't it a bit odd if they have all this evidence of collusion that the indictment today said nothing about collusion at all? Nothing. Nothing. It said there's no indication in this indictment that there was any communication between Russians and Americans who knew they were talking to Russians. None. Now, maybe they're sitting on evidence. I don't know, though. I mean, they indicted 13 Russians and 3 Russian entities and not a word about collusion. That's all. So, I mean, at a certain point, how much more research are they going to do to try to find evidence collusion if there's not any already? And again, maybe they're sitting on evidence. I don't know. I just find it odd that if there's evidence if they have very strong evidence of collusion, that we have a big indictment today of Russians, which doesn't involve collusion at all. Mimi Padu made a donation. Thank you, Mimi Padu. Very nice of you. That helps keep us on the air. Thanks. Let's see. I'm just looking at your comments here. Half Bird, Half Snake Man says, your news about your YouTube account being blocked was far more interesting than the Mueller investigation. Glad you're back on. Thank you, Half Bird, Half Snake Man. No Rhinos writes, if after today you still don't know that CNN fake news is flat out propaganda, you never will get help. Many of these libtards are holding out hope that the FBI is going to discover Russia handed the presidency to Trump and Hillary Clinton would be awarded insanity. Oh, let me say this as well. That reminds me. Another thing Rosenstein said today. This is an exact quote from Rosenstein. Exact quote from Rod Rosenstein, who is speaking on behalf of the Mueller investigation. There is no allegation in the indictment that the charged conduct altered the outcome of the 2016 election. Again, there is no allegation in the indictment that the charged conduct altered the outcome of the 2016 election. It was so funny. And, after the press conference, they go back to Priyana Kilar at CNN. And what she says is like, well, now we're going to have to wonder, there was meddling. So she was trying to suggest, now, based on this press conference, we have to wonder if it affected the election. Even though he said there's no allegation in this indictment that the charged conduct altered the outcome of the 2016 election. Now, maybe somebody might say, well, they weren't investigating the election outcome, and maybe it did alter it. Now, I would think if they had solid evidence it altered it, they wouldn't say this quote, but I don't know. So I leave it to anyone else I'm open to hearing it. If people have evidence that this altered the election, I'm open to hearing it. I'm just telling you what Rod Rosenstein said today. Okay, let me get back to your comments here. Mr. D. Ebanks writes, hey, Steve, these charges are weak, especially after a 13-month investigation. It clearly shows that they are desperate. Sessions could probably find hundreds of thousands of similar charges from Mexicans, Russians, China, Canada, and the EU who did the exact same thing. Trump attracted the attention of the world. Many had things to say online from everywhere. Internet arguments were viral all over the place. The charges are so weak that maybe Mueller might get sued for harassment and infringing on their Second Amendment online. George Soros needs to be indicted for all kinds of things as well as Obama. Treason is the case I'd place on them both. Thanks, Mr. D.E. Banks. Now, I will point out, I believe what Rod Rosenstein said is the charges had to do with it's illegal for a foreign person or entity to, I think, spend money to influence the election. Let me just see if I can find the exact quote here. I mean, I can definitely find it for you. I'm just trying to find it within a reasonable amount of time. Hang on one second. Let's see here. So on page 1 of the indictment, it says, U.S. law bans foreign nationals from making certain expenditures or financial disbursements for the purpose of influencing federal elections. So what it doesn't ban is like somebody, in Mexico or another country posting online for a certain candidate. But it does ban foreign entities from, foreign citizens from making certain expenditures or financial disbursements for the purpose of influencing federal elections. So what you're saying, Mr. D.E. Banks, our viewer, you think it's possible that, say, people in other countries might have paid to have certain posts put online about the election? It's an interesting question. Were there other countries where people might have paid to do this, maybe even private citizens from those countries? Now, maybe if they did, it wasn't as big as Russia. I saw some tidbit that said at some point in 2016, Russia was spending like $1.2 million on this campaign a month, which actually isn't, given how big the U.S. election is to Russia, $1.2 million a month isn't like the most enormous amount of money they could be spending on this, campaign. But anyways, we'll talk more about this, but I want to get to more of your comments and then we'll get back to the indictment and all that stuff. Oh, I missed a donation from Dave P.A. Little. Thank you, Webster, for telling me. Webster, our moderator, has joined JC and Barbara helping out in the chat room now. Dave P.A. Little made a donation and said, keep it up, Steve. Always appreciate the alerts. Thank you, Dave P.A. Little. Very nice of you. Oh, and I was trolled by, I think I was trolled by Jack before. That's what Webster said. You've been trolled by his name. Well, hey, if people want to give money and I get trolled by their name, I'm okay with that. Let's see here. Thomas Speakman says, look at MSNBC, almost comical. I haven't had a chance to watch MSNBC today. Dan writes, somebody responded to me on Twitter named Dan saying, I don't think this is the end of the story. This is just the first in a series of arrests. More information will come to light. Trump's team had links meetings with Russians. I'm not, there could be more indictments. I didn't say there wouldn't be. There could be more indictments. It's just, what I'm saying is just at this point, we've heard nothing to suggest there's actual collusion going on and nothing, there was collusion going on and nothing, the things that will be pointed to is somebody will say, well, George Papadopoulos met with this guy that said he was connected with people in Russia and that he had emails on Hillary. But that George Papadopoulos on indictment never said anything about George Papadopoulos trying to get those emails or even being excited about the guy mentioning the emails. So that's one thing. So, and there was a meeting that Don Jr. had and Manafort and them where they got contacted by someone who said they had damaging information on Hillary and they took the meeting. But, that's not, we haven't seen any evidence of this kind of, big collusion operation between the Russian government and the Trump campaign that has been alleged. And I'm still waiting to see that. Again, if somebody presents me with evidence of it, I'm open to seeing the evidence, but I haven't seen it yet. And we now have, it's like, 15 months after the election, the Mueller investigation has been going on for a while. We have a big indictment today, which mentions nothing about collusion whatsoever. Will we see any charges on collusion? Will we see any even, I don't know if it's collusion is even illegal, but if there's even, will we even see mention evidence of collusion presented by the Mueller investigation? I don't know, but we haven't seen it yet. Carl Peterson made a donation and said, I won't say Waffle House ever. I love you, Steve. Every time I drive past a Waffle House, Carl, I think about how I haven't eaten there yet. But I will. I definitely will. Hey, let's just talk about this story a little more. I'm going to get some more of your comments in a second, but I want to give you some more of the details of the story. So I actually found that the New York Times article had a nice little summary of this, which wasn't trying to spin it at all. This story. So let me just show you this real quick. They just give some of the details here. 13 named in Russia indictment by special counsel and first charges on 2016 election interference. The special counsel investigating Russia's interference, blah, 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 charged 13 Russian nationals and 3 Russian organizations with illegally using social media platforms to sow political discord, including actions that supported the presidential candidacy of Donald Trump and disparaged his opponent Hillary Clinton. But let me say again, let me emphasize this. What the Mueller investigators are saying is that the purpose of this Russian effort was to sow political discord, and that any kind of support of President Trump was done in the service of this larger goal, which was to sow political discord. The indictment represents the first charges by the Mueller investigation for meddling in the 2016 election, the fundamental crime that he was assigned to investigate. Was he? So I need to check this up again. Was Mueller? Was the task? I thought it was to investigate. Was it the task to both investigate collusion and meddling? Let's see if there's a quick answer here. Is there a Wikipedia article? How is there not a Wikipedia article on the Mueller investigation? Mueller investigation, Wikipedia. Okay, special. The investigation is looking into Russian interference, including exploring any links or coordination. Okay, so the main purpose of the investigation is looking into Russian interference and possible collusion. Got it. Let's continue this article here. It's in a 37-page indictment, which we'll take a look at in a little bit. Mueller said the 13 individuals have conspired since 2014, since before Trump was running, since before Trump was running. Since before Trump was running. Let me say this again. Since 2014. Since before Trump was running. Wow. When did Trump start running? 2015 at some point. When did Trump start running for president? June 16th, 2015. And the indictment says 2014. Hey, I'm going to send a tweet out now. Ready? Mueller indictment says Russian election meddling project began in 2014. The year before Trump his candidacy. So that to me, given that this project, these 13 individuals indicted, okay, the people indicted by Mueller today, they were conspiring since 2014. So the people indicted, their purpose couldn't have been to elect Trump because they've conspired since 2014. This is crazy. Hold on a second here. I mean, it's just, look at this again. Look at this. The 13 individuals charged today have conspired since 2014. So how could their purpose be to elect Trump when he wasn't even running until 2015? It's just ridiculous. The people indicted conspired since 2014. This is the 13 people who were indicted. That's just crazy. I want to tweet this out. The Mueller indictment says the 13 people indicted have conspired since 2014. So how could their main goal be electing Trump? Sorry, I got to tweet this out. When he didn't even start running until 2015. Sorry, I just had to say it. It just makes no sense to me. Okay, sorry, I felt so strongly about it, I need to tweet about it. Let's get back to the article. Hey, by the way, thanks for the donation. Carly Sean made a donation and said, sow is pronounced like so. Oh, am I pronounced? Well, hold on, you're saying the word sow. Is there a multiple pronunciation? Oh, I'm pronouncing it wrong. So, I've always said sow, like sow discontent. I'm looking to see if anybody says there's an alternate pronunciation. Oh, I guess I've always been pronouncing it wrong. Well, there you go. You learn something every day. I'll try to say so from now on. Hey, I'll make more mispronouncements if it gets us more donations. Okay, let's get back to this article. Let's see here. Let's continue. It's a short article, just summarizing things for you. The indictment so I just mentioned that the indictment filed says the 13 individuals have conspired since 2014, which seems to make it impossible for their project to have been to support President Trump when he wasn't running until 2015. And they conspired to violate laws that prohibit foreigners from spending money to influence federal elections in the United States. So that's one of the big charges, is that they spent money to influence federal elections in the United States. The indictment charges that the foreigners falsely posed as American citizens, stole identities, and otherwise engaged in fraud and deceit in an effort to influence the U.S. political process, including the 2016 presidential race. So, falsely posed as Americans, stole identities, and otherwise engaged in fraud and deceit. The nature of the scheme was the defendants took extraordinary steps to make it appear that they were ordinary American political activists, said Rosenstein. So we have Russians posing as Americans, and I guess posting stuff and doing that. Posting stuff and also, I think, paying people to do stuff. Let's keep reading. Though the Russians are unlikely to be immediately arrested, I presume because they're in Russia, they are now wanted by the United States government, which will make it hard for them to travel or do business internationally. All were charged with conspiracy to defraud the United States. 3 defendants were also charged with conspiracy to commit wire fraud and bank fraud, and 5 defendants with aggravated identity theft. The Internet Research Agency, operating out of St. Petersburg, was described in the indictment as a hub for a sophisticated operation designed to reach millions of Americans to disrupt the political process in the United States. Again, not to get Trump elected, to disrupt the political process in the United States. Its annual budget was millions of dollars. Its stated goal was to spread distrust toward the candidates and the political system in general. That stated goal does not include getting President Trump elected. I will say it again and again and again, and that is coming from the Mueller investigation. Individuals involved in the conspiracy traveled to and around the United States. visiting at least 8 states, court papers show, and worked with an unidentified American. That person advised them to focus their efforts on what they viewed as purple election battleground states, including Colorado, Virginia, and Florida, the indictment said. But again, Rod Rosenstein said, according to the indictment, no Americans knew that they were talking to Russians. So it sounds like maybe these people came to America and they posed as people with a certain, as Americans with certain political leanings. So maybe, some of these people posed as Trump supporters and said, hey, we want to get Trump elected. What should we do? And, we're Americans. We want to get Trump elected. What should we do? And other Americans gave them advice or something. The Kremlin spokesman Dmitry S. Peskov told the RBC News website that Russian officials haven't familiarized themselves with the document yet. Mr. Rosenstein said repeatedly that the indictment does not allege that the Russian operation changed the outcome of the presidential election. Even though the Russians recruited and paid Americans to help them stage political rallies and promote political candidates, he said, the indictment this is important, the indictment does not allege that any of the Americans knowingly conspired with the Russian operation. So it sounds like, that these Russians came to America and, worked with some Americans to, stage political rallies, promote candidates. But these Americans didn't know they were working with Russians. There is no allegation in this indictment that any American had any knowledge. Okay. Okay, let me do this. Let me get some more comments from you. If you have comments, write to me on Twitter, at Lookner, at Lookner, at Lookner on Twitter. We are reading your comments. We are covering this story. I haven't even had time to get into the actual document yet. I think I'm going to do that next, just kind of skim through the document and see what's in there. But we want to hear from you at Lookner on Twitter. Follow us on YouTube, Right Side Broadcasting on YouTube. Click the notifications bell to get notified when we're coming on the air. But YouTube, as we have seen the last couple days, is subject to randomly shutting down our channel for no reason at all with no explanation. So you should also follow us on Facebook at Right Side Broadcasting and on Twitter at RSB Network. Thank you again to our moderators who've been moderating today. We got JC, we got Webster, we got Barbara Braley, and we... Big thanks to the donators. We are viewer supported. Your donations keep us on the air. If you like having an alternative to the mainstream media, which just presents the news to you without trying to spin it a certain way, you can. We just present the facts and just try to read the facts as they are without coming in and saying we want the facts to be a certain way. Look, if there had been great evidence of collusion today in the press conference, I'd be on the air reporting it. But anyways, if you like having an alternative to the mainstream media, please support Right Side Broadcasting. You can support us by going to the $sign at the bottom of the YouTube chat, right next to the broadcast at the bottom of the chat room on YouTube. There's a little $sign at the bottom. Click on that $sign or go to rsbn.tv/donate, rsbn.tv/donate. A couple of messages from Greg Jackson here. Greg says, the more I read of this indictment, it is precisely what the State Department did in Ukraine. The indictment mentions all the pro-Trump ad buys, but there were also pro-Clinton ad buys, which are not listed in the indictment. So I haven't looked at the indictment. I'm not familiar either way with the whole pro-Clinton ad buy stuff. I'd be interested in that. But I will check. I'm going to check out the indictment in a little bit. Thank you, Greg. And Greg also says, Steve Lookner and RSBN must be Russian agents. They were at the rallies. Is this why RSBN had their live streams prevented? Greg, we have no idea. No idea. Greg Jackson also writes in, I've only read through 1/4 of the document, but so far it is the most superficial indictment I've ever read. I just wonder if this began as a result of the U.S. State Department's flagrant interference in overthrowing the pro-Russian Ukrainian government. State was deeply involved in overthrowing that government. Whether we like it or not, there is a vast majority of pro-Russian nationals that actually prefer ties with Russia. Therefore, how can we as a country complain about Russian interference when we as a country do so and actually fulfill and complete the action? Since I haven't read through it all, is this related to the insignificant ad buys on Facebook and other ridiculous accounts? I have to read through it too, Greg. But Greg, you do make a good point, which I think is worth investigating, and I don't see anyone in the news talking about, but I was thinking about earlier, which is, certainly it's not nice to think about Russia organizing some kind of interference in our elections anyway. But a question I have is, how much do we do that in other countries? I have to say, if there are other countries where, who's the leader? I mean, it's certainly something we have had an effect in our history of, we've had intervened in other countries to promote certain leaders. Of course, that's happened. I would be shocked if we don't do it now. And there's a good argument to be made that, look, if you can promote certain leaders taking power in other countries and work against other leaders secretly, you should be doing that. Like, if the CIA and the State Department can do that in secret, and benefit America, there's a good argument for that. So, I think an important thing to keep in mind when we're talking about the Russian interference is not that we like it, because I think most people don't like it. I certainly don't like the thought of other countries interfering in our elections. But a thing to keep in mind to have perspective is, do we do that in other countries? And if we're going to do it to other countries, do we have to just accept them? We don't have to we can try our best to stop it, but is it weird? Is it sort of morally inconsistent for us to be so critical of other countries from doing it while being okay or just ignoring the fact that we might be doing it as well? So that's an issue you're raising, Greg, and I think it's an important issue to discuss. But certainly for perspective on this, I think that should be brought into the discussion, which I never really see discussed in the coverage at all. Okay, let me get to some more messages, more of your messages on this. Edie Marie Trump made a donation. Edie Marie Trump and said, Edie Marie loves Trump. I'm sorry, Edie Marie loves Trump. And said, is this a joke? Has the FBI ever been on Twitter? Are you asking about the FBI story, Edie Marie? I'm a little confused. I think we might do a different stream on that story after this one. But thank you, Edie Marie, for the donation. P-Cell writes in, the 13 are a scapegoat. How is this an indictment so suddenly? The special counsel has done a good job? Yeah, right. Didn't former President 44 send a special team to Israel to undermine Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu's election? The real narrative here should be the Russians were in favor of Hillary Rodham Clinton. Candidate Donald Trump had nothing to do with the Russians. Now, I don't know. I haven't read the indictment. I've seen one quote from the indictment that said at some point in 2016 the Russians were giving support to Sanders and Trump. But, I have to read more about this. But as I said before, if the purpose of the campaign was, as the special counsel's indictment says, if the purpose of the election meddling campaign was to foment discord and distrust in the candidates in the political system, then it would make sense that the Russians would be supporting Sanders and Trump to make the election closer, to make it maybe a disputed election, because Sanders and Trump are anti-establishment candidates. And that doesn't mean... So they could have been supporting President Trump and Sanders, but that doesn't mean the reason they were meddling was to get Trump elected and that way they were working with Trump. Those are two very different things. Let's see here. Hang on a second. Just checking your messages here. Roxanne Love says, Mueller and the FBI so focused on Russia in the 2016 election results that they dropped the ball on following through with that Florida shooter. Now, I don't have information confirming that one had to do with the other, but that is Roxanne Love's view. Thank you, Roxanne, for writing in. Edward Briley says, I have a cousin that lives in Amsterdam and a resident of Holland, and her husband was born in Holland. They did nothing but support Hillary on Facebook and other websites. Are they guilty of trying to steal a U.S. election? They both posed as U.S. citizens and still do. Now, I have to look at this. From what I'm hearing today, I don't believe it's a crime for a foreign person to pose as an American and post on social media about election stuff. The crimes would be identity theft. Also, a crime would be paying to influence a U.S. election. But I don't believe just posing as an American on social media is a crime. I don't believe. I'm not sure about that. But I haven't heard that today, that is a crime. Tal Wolf says, why is YouTube broadcasting RSBN's Campus Cam Live in separate broadcast with your live show right now? Well, we always do that, Tal Wolf, too. We always have a 24-hour live stream going that goes 24 hours a day. And then when breaking news happens, we do an additional stream separate. We don't just do it on the 24-hour stream because we do separate breaking news streams so afterwards they can be archived and people can watch that stream after. If we just did it on the 24-hour stream, no one could ever go back and find the videos of our breaking news coverage. 3Dale88 says, Shep News Team leads off show with a lie, says Russia proven to meddle with goal to assist President Trump. Now, I don't know what they exactly said, but if they said the main goal was to assist President Trump in the election meddling, that's not what the indictment says. Now, you could, as I've said before, since the goal was to sow distrust in the American system, in working toward that goal, they might have had a subsidiary goal of helping President Trump in order to achieve their overall goal. But in that sense, you really have to twist it to say their goal was helping President Trump. That wasn't their chief goal. But I don't know how it was phrased on the Shep News Team. Sherry M says, so does this mean Clinton and Obama got away with their plot? I'm not sure what plot you're talking about, Sherry M. Feel free to write back and clarify. Thomas writes, it's a witch hunt, Steve, meaning a nothing burger. Mueller got nothing. Daisy Bell says the mainstream media narrative is torn to shreds. They'll just have to fall back on the unrelenting hate mongering. Mark Babson writes, in 2015-2016, what did the Hillary campaign know about these 14 Russians indicted today? Tony Baloney says, these indictments are nothing more than a ploy to take the focus off of the FBI for dropping the ball on the school shooter. Now, I've heard no evidence that this announcement was coordinated with the FBI news, although it did come out 20 minutes after the FBI news broke, which is, it's crazy because that FBI story is such a huge story and now nobody's talking about it. They're just talking about Russia. We're going to do a different stream on the FBI story, though. So Bob's your uncle says, this just in, the idiot Mueller indicts Russian bots. CNN in full meltdown. Back to you, Steve. Let's look for a moment. Hey, let's check out this indictment. I want to find the indictment, but actually a whole document and not like where I can make it full screen. Oops. Here it is. Okay, so we're not going to go through the whole thing because it's 37 pages. Let me skim through. Hang on. Beginning as early as 2014, defendant organization began operations to interfere with the U.S. political system. That's very important to me. They began in 2014. This is the indictment, which is the year before President Trump even declared his candidacy. Okay? Defendants posing as U.S. persons and creating false U.S. personas or operated social media pages and groups designed to attract U.S. audiences. They falsely claimed to be controlled by U.S. activists. They used stolen identities of U.S. persons. These social media accounts became defendants' means to reach significant numbers of Americans for purposes of interfering with the U.S. political system. Certain defendants traveled to the U.S. We heard that already. Again, number 6, very important. Defendant organization had a strategic goal to sow discord in the U.S. political system, including the 2016 presidential election. Defendants posted derogatory information about a number of candidates, and by early to mid-2016, defendants' operations included supporting the presidential candidacy of President Trump and disparaging Hillary Clinton. But note, it should be noted, this says that the operation started in 2014. And then it says, by 2 years later, early to mid-2016, the operations included supporting President Trump and disparaging Hillary Clinton. So that didn't happen until 2 years after. And as we've said, the main goal of the organization was to sow discord in the American, sow discord in the U.S. political system, not to get President Trump elected. And it started out in 2014, a year before President Trump even started running. See, what's going to happen is people are going to take this out of context. I'm sure the media's been doing this already. They're going to look and see and say, they're going to take this out of context and say, look, it says by early to mid-2016, defendants' operations included supporting the presidential campaign of then candidate Donald Trump and disparaging Hillary Clinton. And they're not going to mention that the goal of the organization was not to help President Trump; it was to sow discord in the system. And they're also not going to mention that the organization started in 2014 before Trump wasn't even running. Before Trump was running, they're not going to mention that. I swear, I'm telling you, this sentence is going to be taken out of context in the media a lot today. Defendants conspired to obstruct the lawful functions of the U.S. government through fraud and deceit, including by making expenditures in connection with the U.S. presidential election without proper regulatory disclosure, failing to register as foreign agents, carrying out political activities within the U.S., and obtaining visas through false and fraudulent statements. Okay, this talks about the defendants. Oh my gosh. So it began around June 2000. Look. The agency, which is a defendant, the Internet Research Agency, which is a Russian organization engaged in political and electoral interference, they registered with the Russian government in 2013, July, and then they began obscuring their conduct in June 2014. Employed hundreds of individuals for its online operations. Here we go. Look at how early this is. By in or around April 2014, the organization formed a department that went by various names, but focused on the U.S. population and conducted operations on social media platforms such as YouTube, Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. This was April 2014. By in or around May 2014, the organization's strategy included interfering with the 2016 presidential election with the stated goal of spreading distrust towards the candidates and the political system in general. That's such a huge paragraph there. That's such a key paragraph. When we get off the air, I'm going to post that. I'm writing myself a note. Because look at what that paragraph says. That really sums it up right there. Look at what it says. It says this organization was under the project to interfere with the election was ongoing in May 2014, over a year before President Trump announced his candidacy. And the stated goal of it was to spread distrust towards the candidates and the political system in general, which is not electing President Trump. There you go. On page 6. Highlight that paragraph there. Okay, let me just peek through. Around September 2016, the monthly budget for the project exceeded $1.25 million. I can't read this whole thing now. It's too long, but I'm just flipping through here. Means of the conspiracy, talks about their intelligence gathering. Let me do a search for Trump here. Why doesn't it come up? Why can't I search this? Why can't I search it? So odd. Use of computer infrastructure, stolen U.S. identities, actions targeting the election. They engaged in operations so in 2016, they engaged in operations primarily intended to communicate derogatory information about Hillary Clinton, to denigrate other candidates such as Ted Cruz, and to support Bernie Sanders and President Trump. I have to post a tweet about this right now. Look at this. Look at this, guys. Look at this. Look at this. So the operations in 2016, the Russians were supporting Bernie Sanders, President Trump and Bernie Sanders. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Mueller indictment says in 2016, with overall goal of sowing discord in political system, Russian meddlers didn't just support Trump, but Trump and Bernie Sanders. Hold on, I'm just going to post this. I'm sorry to interrupt the stream to post this, but I do think it's important. So there you go. I want to show you this again. Look at this. To support Bernie Sanders and Trump. Bernie Sanders and Trump. Not just Trump. Trump and Bernie Sanders. Trump and Bernie Sanders. How can this be a conspiracy to support Trump when they were supporting Trump and Bernie Sanders? It says Trump and Bernie Sanders. Look at their paragraph. It says Trump and Bernie Sanders. Unbelievable. Unbelievable. Just unbelievable. Amazing. I mean, the overall takeaway to me from everything we've seen in this indictment today, this indictment is all about an organized Russian election meddling campaign that was designed to sow discord and distrust of the U.S. political system. It was not designed to support a particular candidate, including President Trump. That was not the goal of it. It started in early to mid 2014, over a year before President Trump declared his candidacy. Even during 2016, they were not only supporting President Trump, they were supporting Bernie Sanders. So this, to me, everything I've read in this indictment totally goes against this narrative that Russians were meddling in the election in collusion with President Trump to get President Trump elected. What is supported in this indictment is that the Russians were meddling, which I've been reading stuff for years now saying this is a common Russian tactic. They want to undermine confidence in other countries, and they want to undermine confidence in our government from within this country. So they sow discord and they sow distrust. And as part of that, they supported President Trump in the election during 2016, as they supported Bernie Sanders. He's an anti-establishment candidate. They're both anti-establishment candidates. You support them. Maybe the election is closer. You get a disputed election. People are angry at the government. This is all things Russians could want. So everything I've seen supports the view in the indictment that this was not a Russian organized campaign to help President Trump. It was a Russian meddling campaign to sow discord and distrust, which happened to involve some support of President Trump's campaign in social media because that helped the overall goal. I mean, that's everything we're seeing. And this is from the Mueller investigation. This is what we're hearing this from. We're not hearing this from Republicans. We're hearing this from the Mueller investigation. So I don't know what spin you're seeing on mainstream media about this. There's a lot that can be taken out of context here. People can nitpick through here and say, look, it says the Russians were supporting President Trump in 2016. But that would be to take it out of context. Just ridiculous. Really ridiculous. Sorry, let me just keep going here. Political advertisements. Some pro-Trump and anti-Hillary. And all of this is going to be taken out of context because the key point here is that their overall goal was not to get President Trump elected and that their support of President Trump was only in pursuit of this overall goal, which was to sow discord and distrust in the political system. And they supported Bernie Sanders as well. Oh, and I heard this before. This is really funny. I posted about this on Twitter. Look at 57. After the election of President Trump in or around November 2016, defenders and their co-conspirators used false U.S. personas to organize and coordinate U.S. political rallies in support of then President-elect Trump, while simultaneously using other false U.S. personas to organize and consolidate U.S. political rallies protesting the results of the U.S. presidential election. So after the election, these Russians indicted today not only organized rallies in support of Trump, they organized anti-Trump rallies protesting the election. How could this be a pro-Trump conspiracy if right after the election, they're organizing rallies both in support and against President Trump? Why would a pro-Trump conspiracy organize protests after the election, protesting the election? It says it. Look, it says it in the indictment. I'm showing you. I'm not making this up. It says it in the indictment right there. It's just amazing. It's just amazing. Absolutely amazing. Just amazing. It talks about specific Facebook ads and posts they made in 2016, which I'm sure a lot of this will be taken out of context. Talks about some of the identity theft they did. And then it talks about the counts. All right, anyways. All right, we've skimmed through it. Anyways. All right. I'm going to read some more comments to you, and then I think after I read some more comments, we're going to wrap up the stream and do another stream on the FBI story, because that's such a big story, that FBI story, and I don't want it to get overwhelmed today and have no one talking about it because of this. So, somebody just said Trump made a tweet. Eric said Trump made a tweet. Thank you, Eric. I will. Let's see this. Oh, he said what I said. Russia started their anti-U.S. campaign in 2014, long before I announced that I would run for president. The results of the election were not impacted. The Trump campaign did nothing wrong, no collusion. President Trump tweeted that out. He tweeted this out 9 minutes ago. I tweeted it out before him, the 2014 thing. So there, as I've been saying, he's right. They did start their anti-U.S. campaign in 2014. Early 2014. Thank you, Eric, for letting me know. Let me get to some more of your comments now. Thank you, Barbara, for letting me know. Barbara Braley for letting me know the president tweeted too. And JC, thanks, guys. Grant says, is Mueller done? No, the investigation is still continuing. We don't know what else is going to come from this investigation. Roxanne Love says, Russia trying to incite a civil war here in America, perhaps? Kenny Anders, I agree with Kenny. Kenny said, he replied to my tweet about what the overall, I said the overall goal, as the indictment says, the overall goal is sowing discord in the political system. And he says the past year has shown them to have been successful. I agree with Kenny. So, it's like, it's what Russia loves when people get on the air and the media says this was a Russia conspiracy to help Donald Trump win the election. Russia loves that. That's what all the complaining is what they want. So it's just funny. A lot of the media is so angry about the Russian meddling. And by going on and taking things out of context and presenting things, spinning things to be something other than they are, they actually do what the Russians want to happen. Sherry M says, bottom of number 57 said they formed the Charlotte, North Carolina rally against Trump. Isn't that where the big violent rally happened? No, that was Charlottesville, not Charlotte. That was Charlottesville, Virginia, where the violence happened at the rally. All right, let me just do a quick news check here. By the way, I was going through my Twitter. This just happened happened right near me, in the Atlanta area. Police report that a 7th grader posted Snapchat. This is Atlanta, a suburb of Atlanta. I'm in Atlanta here. Holding a gun, warning students not to show up to Centennial High in Roswell. Was going to shoot up the school. Student was arrested. Anyways. President Trump has boarded Air Force One for a weekend trip to Florida. All right, so I think at this point we're going to wrap up this stream. Now, I want to say this. I have to check this. Some people are saying, so Ari Melber says, Mueller indictment compels Donald Trump to publicly concede Russian meddling, something he has denied throughout his presidency thus far, because President Trump said Russia started their anti-U.S. campaign in 2014. Now, I don't know. I have to check. Has President Trump said literally, like, and I talked about this earlier on the broadcast, has he said literally Russians in no way, like no Russians ever took out social media ads about the election or anything? I know he has said no collusion repeatedly. I'd have to go back and see what he said. So, and I said this before. I said, look, and I would have told you this before. If President Trump said, well, literally no Russians ever took out social media ads on Facebook or advertisements, he would be wrong about that. And the indictment shows that. But I think we would have known, I think we knew that before that would have been wrong. But I recall the big thing him saying is no collusion. That's what he's been repeating over and over again. That's what Sarah Sanders has been saying. So that, to me, is the big thing he's been saying, not no involvement in the election whatsoever. Mr. Nicktown made a donation. Thank you, Mr. Nicktown. Mr. Nicktown said, distraction from the FBI's massive failure to prevent the school shooting they were warned about and get trust built for Rosenstein. I do not trust MAGA. Thank you, Mr. Nicktown, for the donation. Okay, so what we're gonna do is we're gonna wrap up this stream, and then in a little bit we're gonna do a stream on the FBI story. I think maybe we'll do the FBI stream. It's either going to be in like 20 minutes or a couple hours. It'll be one of the two. I'm going to try to do it in like 20 minutes. That's what I'm going to try to do in like 20 minutes. Let's see if I can do that. But we will have sometime soon a stream on the FBI story. We want to get you that stream. So, but for now, we appreciate all of you joining us for this stream. Oh, my tie got all messed up again. I got to fix this. We appreciate you joining us for this stream. Be sure to subscribe to us on YouTube, Right Side Broadcasting, and click the notifications bell for notifications for when we're coming on live. Follow us on Facebook, Right Side Broadcasting, on Twitter at RSB Network. I will be posting about Twitter all day, breaking news as I normally do and all night. So follow me on Twitter at Lookner, on Twitter at Lookner. Big thanks to the people who donated. We are viewer supported. We can only do this coverage because you guys support us. We make very little from YouTube, and also YouTube, they already marked this video not friendly to advertisers, so we'll get very little ad revenue from it. Your donations are what keeps us on the air, so if you want to support Right Side Broadcasting, go to the bottom of the YouTube chat, click on the dollar sign at the bottom of the YouTube chat, or go to rsbn.tv/donate, rsbn.tv/donate. You can even get free stuff like this Right Side mug by setting up a monthly donation at rsbn.tv/donate. And what else was I going to say here? Carl Peterson says, "Eat first, Steve. RSBN is MAGA." Yeah, I might eat before the next stream. We'll see what happens. Let me figure it out here. Either way, we will be doing another stream about. We'll be doing a stream about the FBI story. JC and Webster and Barbara Braley, thank you, and Jazz Punk, thank you for moderating this chat room, and Common Sense and Gleno on the website. We appreciate it, and thank you to everybody who has been watching the stream, both on Facebook and on YouTube. And on our website. Thank you for saying thanks, Frog Stew, and Grumpy, and The American, and Light Switch, and Via Verdi, and Marjorie, and P-Cell, Kitty, Swoosh, Claudia, Noah. Hey, I should check the Facebook chat too real quick. I try to do this when I get a chance. Facebook chat, I am checking you right now. Thank you to our Facebook viewers who've been watching and participating in the chat. People like Fran Filari, Brenda Shue, Pam Foudy Johnson, Helen Martinez, Scott Davidson, have all been chatting. Judy Pierce, Nakeen, Don Damerman. We appreciate you all watching and participating on our Facebook site. And thank you, McAmay, or MCA McKay, Grant Patillo, and everyone else out there. Oh, Carl Peterson made a donation. Oh, I already mentioned Carl's donation. Thanks, Carl. GTO Mama, thank you. All right, we're going to wrap up this stream. Thank you to all for watching. We will do another stream very shortly, later today, on the FBI story. It's a very important story, so I'm going to go refresh myself, maybe eat something, and then come back on the air and do that story as well. So be sure to subscribe to us on YouTube and Facebook so you get a heads up about that. But for now, I am Steve Lookner. This has been our coverage of the Mueller indictment of 13 Russians and 3 Russian entities for election meddling. We hope you have a good day. We will see you very soon, I hope, for our FBI news stream. But for now, I'm Steve Lookner from all of us here at Right Side Broadcasting. Thank you for watching.